And welcome to the Cedar Falls regular City Council meeting this June 17, 2019. I'll now call this meeting to order and ask for a roll call from Madam Clerk, please.
Miller.
Here.
DeBoer.
Here.
Cruz.
Here.
Blanford.
Here.
Dara.
Here.
Wieland.
Here.
Green.
Here.
All members present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. The next item is the approval of the minutes. Item number 1, is there a motion to approve the regular meeting of June 3rd?
So moved.
Motion and second. I'll open for council comments from the public. Hearing and seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Any agenda revisions, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Item 29 on the resolution calendar is being removed.
Item 29. Thank you. Next is special order of business. Item 2 is a public hearing on proposed rezoning from R3 to C2 of property located at 2600 Grove Street. Is there a motion to receive and file proof of publication?
So move. Second.
Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Any written communications filed with the city clerk?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Before we go to public comments, I'd like, I believe, to ask Iris Lehman to make some comments on this public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. So it was recently brought to city staff's attention that the property at 2600 Grove Street was incorrectly zoned R3, multiple residence district back in
Sorry, is it also on, Dave? I thought you pushed it and, okay. Sorry,
my first time
Iris.
using one of these, so I apologize. So to correct this mapping error, staff is requesting to rezone the property from R3 to C2 commercial district. So some just quick background information. The C2 commercial district boundary does follow this property's western and southern property line. The building that currently sits on this lot is a pole frame metal warehouse that currently services the commercial properties to the south. It is a non-conforming use under the R3 zoning standards, but would be conforming use in the C2 zoning district. This property, or the structure itself, was constructed prior to the 1970 creation of the zoning district boundaries, so staff assumed that it was a mistake, that the line was just drawn a little bit too far to the south. Looking at the 3 requirements for a rezoning, the property is consistent with the future land use map for commercial in this area. It is readily accessible, and there is adequate roadway access to the lot. So in summary, again, staff is recommending that the property be rezoned to C2 commercial.
Thank you, Iris. Now open it up for the public for public comments. Hearing and seeing none, declare the hearing closed. Item 3 is passed an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances from the R3 to the C2 upon its first consideration. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion second. Any further discussion from council? Requires a roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. On to old business. Item 4 is passed ordinance 2944 relative to updating terminology in conjunction with the implementation of recommendations from the downtown parking study upon its third and final consideration. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion from council. Roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 5 is passed ordinance 2945 relative to establishing parking regulations in conjunction with the implementation of the recommendations from the downtown parking study upon its third and final. Is there a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Motion second. Requires a roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And item 6 is passed ordinance 2946, amending Chapter 23 of the Code of Ordinances to be consistent with parking regulations being established in conjunction with the implementation of recommendations from the downtown parking study upon its second consideration. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion second. Anything further from council? Requires a roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next is the consent calendar. The final following items will be acted upon by a voice vote on a single motion without separate discussion unless someone from the council or the public requires or requests an item to be pulled separately. Any such requests from council? From the public? Hearing and seeing none, I'll summarize the consent calendar briefly. Item 7 is approve the following recommendations of the mayor relative to the appointment of members to boards and commissions. It's Brian Hayes and Michael Mankey for the Historic Preservation Commission, Deborah Eel for the Utility Boards of Trustees, Brooke Crocher Sidebotham, Amy Dutton and Doug Johnson for the Visitors and Tourism Boards. I know on behalf of the council and myself, we appreciate the service you are doing for the community. Item 8 is receive and file the Committee of the Whole minutes of June 3rd. 9 is receive and file a communication from the Civil Service Commission. 10 is receive and file 2 reports in conjunction with the West First Street reconstruction project. 11 is approve a request for street closures for the Sturgis Falls Half Marathon and 5K Run on June 30th. 12 is approve applications and permits, and 13 is approving permits and licenses. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion from council? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next is the resolution calendar. These items will be acted upon by a roll call vote on a single motion without separate discussion unless someone from the council or the public requests an item to be pulled for such a discussion. Any such requests from council? Mr. Blanford?
Item 16 for abstention, Mr. Mayor.
Item 16, anyone further from council?
Item 14 and 23?
14 and 22?
23, sir.
23? Anything further from council? From the public? I'll now review those items on the resolution calendar minus those that are pulled. Item 15 is a resolution approving and authorizing execution of an engagement letter to perform the annual audit of the city's fiscal year 19 financial statements. Item 17 is approving and authorizing execution of an agreement for textile services with the city. 18 is approving and authorizing execution of an administrative services agreement relative to the city's health care plan. 19 is approving a stop-loss policy relative to the city's employee health plan. 20 is approving and authorizing execution of a client agreement relative to pharmacy benefit management services. 21 is approving and authorizing execution of a client authorization to bind coverage relative to insurance brokerage and risk management services. Item 22 is approving and adopting the city's fiscal year 20 fee schedule. 24 is approving and accepting a quick claim deed in conjunction with the Ridgeway Avenue reconstruction project. 25 is approving and authorizing execution of a supplemental agreement to the professional services agreement for engineering services relative to the Green Hill Road Extension lighting project. 26 is approving and adopting revised bylaws for the Historic Preservation Commission. 27 and 28 are resolutions approving and accepting a lien notice and special promissory note for properties relative to the rental to single-family owner conversion incentive plan. Item 30 is a resolution setting July 1st as a date of public hearing and a proposal to undertake a public improvement project for the Cyber Lane 2018 street construction project and to authorize acquisition of private property for said project. 31 is a resolution receiving and filing and setting July 1st as a date of public hearing on the proposed plans for the South Main Street parking lot project that's across from the dog park. Item 32 is resolution setting July 1st as a date of public hearing to consider entering into proposed agreement for private development and to consider conveyance of certain city-owned real estate. 33 is a resolution setting July 2nd as a date of consultation and directing mailing of notice of consultation, and setting August 19th as a date of public hearing, directing publication and notice of hearing, directing the mailing of notice of certain hearings, and approving pre-annexation for real estate to the city of Cedar Falls. Item 34 is a resolution appointing City Council member Susan DeBoer as a representative of the city of Cedar Falls for a consultation with representatives of the Blackhawk County Board of Supervisors and the Cedar Falls Township trustees relative to applications for voluntary annexation of certain real estate to the city of Cedar Falls. Is there a motion to approve the resolution calendar minus those items
So moved.
pulled?
Second.
Motion second. Anything further from council? Requires a roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Moving back to item 14, it reads a resolution approving and adopting the city's FY20 appropriations resolution. Is there a motion, please?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion second. Open up for discussion. Mr. Green?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Looking at page 244 of the council packet, it says in section 3 that an appropriation not necessary for the use for which it was appropriated may be used to defray expenditures for other items in the fund to which it belongs. And as I understand it, that's how the public safety building was paid for, or a significant part of it was paid for by using funds that weren't part of police operations. or weren't necessary for police operations. This was over multiple years. So my question for this would be, is this happening again? Do we have another item targeted for expenditure with city funds, such as a new building or something like that, on the docket already?
Is there something in the future we're looking into?
I guess, Mayor, I'll start. Just one point of clarification, is not necessarily just the public safety building. It's, or police budget that paid for the public safety building. What happens is every year after we go through all of the annual budget and we take those excess funds, and those excess funds then with the city council reappropriates them into a capital improvements project, or a capital improvements fund, and we identify one-time capital expenditures such as a public safety building. I would say the next project that we have, and it's actually in the CIP right now, would be some of the repurposing and remodeling of City Hall.
Thank you. Anyone further from council? Hearing and seeing none. Been motion and second. This requires a roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 16 reads a resolution naming official depositories for the city of Cedar Falls. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Open up for discussion. Mr. Blanford?
Just pulled for abstention.
You did say that. Thank you very much. Anything further from council or the
Mr. Mayor?
public? Yes, Mr. Green.
Just as a question for council and a concern, looking at the list of depositories for Cedar Falls, one of the highest depository amounts is $50 million with Wells Fargo. If you've been following the news the last year or two, Wells Fargo has seen significant penalties and fines for corporate behavior. And I just want to bring it up as a comment that I believe city staff should be looking at whether or not we should reduce our depositories or change it in order to be in a show proper stewardship with corporate governance with Wells Fargo. That's
Thank
all.
you. Anything further from council? This requires a roll call vote, please.
6 voting aye and 1 abstain.
Thank you. Item 23 reads a resolution approving and authorizing execution of a memorandum of agreement with Waterloo Convention and Visitors Bureau relative to the preparation of a visitor's guide. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Open it up for discussion with council. Mr. Green, I believe.
Yes, sir. With this one, I had to think quite a bit about this. This is why I was late for committee of the whole, because my wife and I had a lengthy discussion about the ability for government to bring itself into a money-making or a profit-making endeavor. And it was a red flag for me with this, with the visitor's guide, when the Tourism Bureau said that we could take significantly more profits by doing this project in-house rather than having the courier do it for us. So just it's a principle difference where I just believe that the government shouldn't be inserting itself into making money and competing with the private enterprise. So I wouldn't be in favor of having the city take over that responsibility, or even working with a nonprofit to do it. I believe it should be left up to private industry to make that profit, and basically to stay in the same arrangement we had last year. So I'm curious if there's some information from city staff on that, if they couldn't, a courier couldn't meet the requirements in some fashion.
I'm not sure. Is staff able to comment on that at all in terms of with visitors and tourism?
Mayor?
Yeah, sorry.
I'm able to talk a little bit about that. Mr. Green, thank you for your comments. I think this is just something that both visitors bureaus want to try. The courier has been great stewards in the past for the ads. There's been a little bit of a timing issue as far as when the ads are done and when we actually need the visitor's guide, so this will allow a little bit more flexibility with that. But I think it's a way that we're trying to obtain some revenues to keep our tax askings down. I will give you similar situations in the past where the city has sold advertising on our golf scorecards, so that those didn't cost us $1,500 a year. We sold advertising on our golf tee boxes and those sorts of things to pay for improvements such as benches and trash containers and our yardage markers and stuff. So I'm not sure if that's exactly the same, but we believe that if it's possible for us to keep our expenses down, that's just less cost we have to pass on to the users and that come from our tax askings.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Anything further from council? Requires a roll call vote, please.
Six voting aye, one voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 35 is to pass an ordinance amending, Chapter 23 of the Code of Ordinances relative to prohibitive parking on portions of Panther Lane is upon its first consideration. Is there a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any further discussion from council? I will open up for the public. It can be now or public comment. You're more than welcome to. Well, before they're voting, maybe now, if you live on Panther Lane. Just make sure that microphone's right there.
Carol Shelton, 3528 Panther Lane. I spoke to you earlier. I'm part of the trio. I'm the Uber driver for the trio. So we're here. We have not changed in our positive attitude for what you have done for us. We made a very simple, short request from like Starview Drive to the bridge. And the city is so enthusiastic and does their job so well that we not only got from Starview Drive to the bridge, we got clear back up to Springbrook. So you overdid it, and we're going to be happy to live with it and hope that our problem has been solved.
Thank you, Carol.
So we thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anyone further? Hearing and seeing none, this requires a roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 36, is there a motion to allow bills and payroll?
Motion to approve bills and payroll.
Second.
Motion second, requires a roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next item is City Council referral. Does council have any items for referral this evening? Hearing and seeing none, does council have any updates? Hearing and seeing none, I do have an update coming from Director Ripplinger and a couple other of the staff members, but I'll leave it to Director Ripplinger at this time.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to pass on some information regarding our cemeteries. They've been in the media here lately, and I want to give you a little bit of an update on what's occurring here. Several times a year, staff maintains the cemeteries by removing dead plants, items that have blown off grave sites, broken flower pots, and miscellaneous items. This has been an ongoing process for years and usually results in 3 or so truckloads of debris that are taken to the landfill or the compost facility. This maintenance is needed to allow for efficient mowing, leaf, and snow removal. In order to be more thorough, cemetery staff started enforcing an ordinance which requires all items such as vases, flowers, shepherd hooks, and anything that is not placed on or attached firmly to the headstone or footing be removed and placed for pickup at the respective cemeteries. This occurs 3 days after Memorial Day. These cemeteries include Greenwood, Fairview, and Hillside. Although the ordinance has been in place since 1989, it had not previously been as strictly enforced, and this change in enforcement was not communicated to the public. This has caused anxiety, confusion from our community, and has drawn media attention. In particular, this has raised concerns regarding the disposal of American flags at the cemeteries. While staff has been diligent in the past about proper disposal of flags on poles, some were unaware that small flags need to be disposed in the same manner. We have spoken to veterans and reached out to the AMVETs to work together with them to educate our staff over the appropriate method to dispose of flags. This matter will continue to be a priority in order to avoid future misunderstandings regarding this vital process. For those individuals who were affected by these events, staff has been working to arrange for them to pick up their items at the appropriate cemetery. We are providing claim forms that can be reviewed by risk management for items that are missing. After speaking with many members of the community, the general consensus we have received is that if the city had provided a notice of the rules prior, residents would have removed items in a timely manner. We apologize for this lack of public notice, and we will improve our communications going forward. We're also working on signage that clearly states the rules and regulations of the ordinance. Our goal is to post these signs as soon as possible, particularly as July 4th nears, which brings a number of patriotic items to the cemeteries.
Thank you, Mark. And I believe Director Olson has an update for us as well.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have an open house coming up for our new public safety building. This building has been in the planning process for a number of years. We had a study done in 2015 for the best locations for fire departments done by Narva and Associates that confirmed this location was a good location for a fire station as well as a public safety building. Part of the reasons for looking at developing a new public safety building, primarily for the police, as a fire station was located at that location for the last 10 years. So the fire station locations aren't changing. There'll be one there, and the one at 18th and Main will remain open as well. But we have police officers writing reports in hallways. We have one garage for a squad. And sometimes on weekends, you're transporting multiple prisoners at a time, and you have to walk some through the outside into the building. We've had some problems with some prisoners taking off running, that sort, lack of interview rooms, lack of desk space for investigators, no weapons maintenance area. There's all sorts of different reasons why we've been looking at a police building for a number of years. I'd like to add that this building was funded with no tax increases. We talked a little bit earlier tonight about how that funding occurred, and that's through each department is encouraged to turn money back at the end of each year instead of going on a spending frenzy at the end of the year. We're spending our money responsibly, and as we turn money back, we can save it for other capital projects. So our open house is 1 week from today, and that is June 24th from 4 to 7. The ribbon cutting is at 4:15, so we're inviting anybody from the public to come tour that building. We'll have some guided tours there. And we hope to be moving in around July 8th. We hope to be the first operational day at that building. So we just want to invite everybody to attend.
Very good. Thank you, Director Olson, and the work from the Assistant Chiefs, Police and Fire, Bertie and Boswick. Appreciate that. And finally, Council, update from Director Gaines on our ISO rating.
Thanks, Mayor. Just real quickly, I'll keep with that public safety theme and give you an update or announcement on our ISO rating. As many of you know, last 6, 8, 9 months, we've had several citizens maybe come up to the podium and speak about their concern for future ISO ratings and where that may go with regard to our public safety department. I think Director Olson's been very upfront about talking about where we are in the process. We've been under a reevaluation here for the last couple of months, and we recently got word that we're currently a 3 in our ISO rating, and we will continue to be a 3. We're remaining a 3, so very pleased for that. Just a little background, ISO is the Insurance Service Organization. They are an independent third-party organization that surveys or evaluates fire departments across the nation. In particular, over 1,600 in the state of Iowa and over 46,000 nationwide that they evaluate. So the validation of our ISO rating of 3, what does that mean for the city of Cedar Falls? That really puts us in the top 3.5% of fire departments throughout the state of Iowa. So it's a really great rating. I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate Director Olson, Chief Bostwick, Chief Bertie, and the rest of our public safety staff for all the work they do and all the work that they put in for this program. So thank you guys. And then I'd also like to take an opportunity here, Mayor, to congratulate the Mayor and Council on the ISO rating of 3, But maybe more importantly, I'd like to thank you for your leadership through the implementation of this public safety model, as sometimes it's not maybe been the smoothest. So thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
could we get a quick update from Director Ripplinger on the compost station guard that's come up this week? He's got some information.
Do you have information on
shared
that,
earlier.
Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Green, we implemented a staff member to go out to our compost facility. We were having some problems with illegal dumping, and that individual has taken those duties, started about three or so weeks ago. We will have a little bit more data for the council here in the future to find out how that's going. Councilman Green did remind me before the meeting that we need to do a little bit better job on providing a uniform and making sure the public knows that that's a city staff person. So we will providing that individual with an ID and to make sure that anyone coming in there know this is a city staff member who's asking them for information.
Thank you. Anything further? Moving on to public forum, speakers will have up to one opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes on topics germane to city business. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak tonight? Right in the middle there, I think, Dave. Just state your name and address for me, please.
Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Dave Kivett. I live at 1115 Oak Park Boulevard. I am a pastor here in town. When I was interviewing in the Presbyterian Church, it's a committee process, so you talk to a lot of people, and they all told me the same thing about how great it is to live here. My associate pastor told me we had great bike trails. The staff at the church told me we had great bike trails. The committee that interviewed me told me I had great bike trails. I was feeling good about the interview. Went across the street from the Black Hawk Hotel to get a cold beverage. The person I struck up a conversation with told me what great bike trails we have. I got on the plane in Cedar Rapids to fly back to Atlanta, and the guy next to me on the plane said, "You're going to love the Cedar Valley. They've got great bike trails." I like how consistent we are about our strengths. The Wall Street 24/7 report demonstrates that we have a consistent weakness that needs to be addressed. A pastor from Waterloo went to the Waterloo City Council and asked them, "What are you doing to address the challenges represented here with the significant disparities along racial lines in employment, opportunity, incarceration, etc.?" I thought I would bookend that by being a pastor here in Cedar Falls to come and ask you, what are you doing about that? It is a significant challenge, and it is a challenge for us. This is not a Waterloo problem. This is a Cedar Valley problem. And I'm committed to doing my best as a pastor and as a citizen to do what I can to bridge those gaps. But I think what we need and what I'm asking you to do is to empower the mayor to have a conversation with Mayor Hart, their friends, and get the two mayors together and put it together a task force of some kind. There's a lot of good work already being done. For example, Grow Cedar Valley is doing some great work along these lines. There are any number of interfaith activities on this front as well, but it would help to have a holistic, comprehensive approach to how to address this issue. And I think the best way to do that is, instead of having this committee do this, and this committee do that, and this committee do that, try to find a way to coordinate that and have a shared task force with Waterloo. I trust our mayors to come up with a good group of people to get that done. That's what I'm here to ask you to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Dave. And just letting the council know, the pastor and I were discussing earlier, Mayor Hart and I have been in a number of different conversations and different meetings. One is an equality task force with the governor about 1.5 years ago, speaking on some of these topics in terms of the disparity. I've also just last week met with Colleen Soley of the Cedar Falls Human Rights Commission, along with Andrew Morris, and came up with some real good ideas in terms of what we can do collectively under the Grow Cedar Valley economic inclusion efforts. And so they're going to ramp up their efforts and sort of be the liaison there between those organizations to see what we can do specifically, I think, towards the inequality. And a few takeaways is we're going to engage more with that focus on business folks to see what can be done there. The other is to just last week engage with another set of folks at a committee meeting or a meeting at Western Home for the daycare initiative that you may or may not heard of. It's just a group of folks getting together, hoping to help with businesses in terms of establishing daycare through another group of folks that have been doing a great job in laying some groundwork there. Continue the great work of the Cedar Falls Human Rights Commission. Transfer these findings and ideas to the leadership of Grow Cedar Valley to help that coordination I think Pastor was talking about, and obviously, without a doubt, continue the conversations with Mayor Hart in relation to keeping those conversations going. So this is a quick update for you in relation to what's happening. Rosemary, I saw your hand up. Please come up.
Good evening, Rosemary Beach, 5018 Sage Road, Cedar Falls, Iowa. I just want to invite you to 2 weekends that are going to be wonderful in Cedar Falls. If you haven't been to the art festival, I would suggest that you try that this coming weekend, and I would suggest you do Sturgis Falls. As the lone person left in Cedar Falls that was there at the beginning, Judy Cutler is now living in Florida, and Tom, of course, is deceased. It's 44 years, and I didn't age a bit, I want to tell you that. But it is a fabulous affair that has been kept alive by the volunteers within this area. And we thank you every year for it and hope you come and spend your money. It goes well. The gifts that the festival has given to, I will just tell you, the first year we had money left over, not probably the second year, we gave it to the library for little TVs, if you can believe that. So we never had any money to start with. But we hope you come, we hope you have a good time and are careful and just enjoy your family and your friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. Ms. Pop, I see your hand.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Penny Pop. I live at 4805 South Main. Tonight, I'd like to talk about volunteering. And in our community, many things occur because of volunteers. Folks volunteer to be on one of our city's boards or commissions. Other folks may volunteer to help sustain the health and beauty of Cedar Falls by planting trees. And others volunteer by reading to our youngest residents. I was given the opportunity to arrange story time for the Cedar Valley Arboretum for the season. As I reviewed the list of past readers, I was trying to think outside the box. I noted a few things. Women and men in uniform are the most to accept an invitation to read, and many readers were science or nature orientated. So immediately I noticed the need for strong role models from all walks of life and the need for men to read to our wee ones. But who to invite? I only thought of role models and those who had a different profession. I didn't think of political affiliation, but I will admit I thought of gender. I thought about those who could represent Cedar Falls and Waterloo. I thought, what neighbor would help? With that criteria established, one of my first invitations sent was to our mayor of Cedar Falls. He met all of my criteria, even though we may not agree all the time. I think the mayor would agree, though, that the business that occurs in these chambers fade away, and any disagreements are a moot point when it comes time to volunteer. Our mayor graciously agreed to read. I think it's a great way to introduce our public servants and their role in the community to our youngest residents. The mayor of Waterloo has also accepted an invitation to read. Now, since I have a special interest and love for Cedar Falls, I selfishly scheduled our mayor first. He reads Wednesday. Mayor of Waterloo reads next week. So story time does run through August, and I would be remiss if I didn't thank in advance our men and women in uniform being represented by the Cedar Falls Police Department and our strong community being represented by the Cedar Falls Public Library and, of course, many of our neighbors. I think we all know the benefit and value of reaching everyone in our community, young and old. And again, thank you, Mayor, the City of Cedar Falls, and our neighbors who give their time in volunteering for our community. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Pop. Yes, Mr. Skane, come on up, please.
Jim Skane, 2215 Clay Street, Cedar Falls. 2 weeks ago, I spoke to the council, and at that time, I pointed out to the council that 2824 was null and void. And I indicated to the mayor that I rose to a point of order, and the point was well taken. 2 weeks have passed. I have received absolutely no response from anyone who is on the council or any other official. There is a rule of law that says that if a statement is made and it's not refuted, then it is considered to be valid. And that is what happened. We no longer have a city administrator. That 2824 is indeed null and void. Now, what does that mean? That means that the language that is in the code for the mayor, which has remained there, but which has been somewhat altered with the 2017 code revision. And I think those alterations are really significant, and we can talk about those at another time. But that means that, Mr. Mayor, as a full-time mayor, you have all the responsibilities that that particular language in the code gives to you. And one of the things that's in there that might be helpful to you is that there is a provision for an administrative assistant, something that the city had for many years. But in any case, 2824 is null and void because it violated Chapter 372 of the Iowa Code. There was no petition, there was no election, and even though it passed on June 23rd, 2014, it had, at that time, a 7-0 vote. And it says in the rules of order that even if a motion passes unanimously, if it's in violation with the Iowa or state, local, national code, it is null and void. So, Mr. Mayor, you have more duties than the 3 that they have outlined for you as a result of 2824. One other point that I want to bring up, we have a Constitution, and that Constitution has an amendment, the First Amendment, and in that statement, it indicates that people can present their positions freely, and for the last years, this council has forbidden that because they have been given an unconstitutional ability to the mayor, and that is to decide at any point in the person's presentation that it's not germane. That's not appropriate. And I would respectfully ask that the word germane be removed. It's a violation of people's rights. So my real concern, I really believe that this council has been ill-served by being told the wrong things about how to process its business. It hasn't always been that way, but it has been that way recently. And I really feel that the city attorney, who is your parliamentarian, has frankly given you, because I think all of you are intelligent and are willing and wanting to do the right thing, have been given bad advice.
Thank you, Mr. Skane.
Mr. Mayor.
Before you ask Mr. Whelan, I would like to go and refer to Attorney Rogers on the previous speaker's numerous attempts to claim null and void for item 2824. Would you just please give us a synopsis of your opinion on that or background, please?
Sure. First of all, the standing up at public forum and stating something like null and void has no effect on this body. Mr. Skane's not a member of this assembly. And furthermore, council rules prohibit the council from taking action in response to a speaker at public forum. That's point number one. The fundamental point here, though, is that this matter of the alleged change of form of government has been reviewed by your previous city attorney of 30 years. It's found to be valid. It's also been reviewed by me extensively. I think I've spoken on this publicly before and have found there was no change of government. Therefore, the position of city administrator was properly formed. And I would add that this matter back in 2014 was referred to the state ombudsman for review. That office took no action. All those would tell you that you've been getting good advice, and the form of government remains as it always has been, and the city administrator position is perfectly valid and legal.
Thank you, Attorney Rogers. Mr. Whelan, did you have a
Yes, I'd like
comment,
to speak a little bit.
please?
I think it was 4 years now that Mr. Skane has been telling us that we operate in an erroneous form of government, 5 years. A lot of what I'm going to say has already been repeated by or mentioned by our attorney, but I would like to just cover some of it. Let's take a look at the facts that support the fact that we are a legal form of government. In mid-2015, Mr. Skane, and later a second citizen in Cedar Falls, contacted the state ombudsman regarding the reorganization of the city, and particularly as it related to the position of city administrator. We cannot be sure of any specific information provided by the state ombudsman to Mr. Skane. However, on May 18, 2015, the ombudsman informed the city that it had reviewed the matter, indicating that the complaint with regard to the city's reorganization was unfounded. As far as we know, the ombudsman has not taken any further action. In order to accept Mr. Skane's position on this issue, and you've heard some of this from our attorney, one would have to accept the position taken by our former city attorney, our current city attorney, the Office of the State Ombudsman, this hasn't been mentioned, the Iowa League of Cities, and scores of cities across the state operating under the mayor-council form of government, which have adopted similar ordinances creating the position of city manager. In closing, I have stated before, Cedar Falls is lawfully operating under the mayor-council form of government by appointing a city manager as specified by Iowa Code. I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Whelan. Anything further from council, to council or to staff and the previous speaker? Hearing and seeing none. Was there someone else another public comment? No, sir. Does anyone else have a public comment this evening from the public? Is there a motion to adjourn, please?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Thank you.